all the songs we're going to be hearing from you are going to be, I think it's safe to say, reminders of what we do believe.
That's right.
But there's so much power in just having that reinforced in song. And of course, you sing them from your heart. It ministered to you first, didn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, I've said this, and anybody's heard me ever say anything in testimony. My dad always said my nickname was Chub, you know, growing up. And
I was called Chubbs with an S.
Really? Okay, cool.
All right,
That's pretty
sis.
good. That's
Hey,
pretty
we're all
good.
right.
But my dad would say to me, he said, his voice was real kind of groggly. He would say, Chub, baby, if you don't mean it, don't sing it. So that still stands true for me. There are a lot of great songs, and I hear a lot of wonderful people sing them, but if they don't hit me first, I can't really communicate that truth to anybody else. So it's pretty powerful to do it that way.
You have so much in your story. Wow, wow, wow. That we're spreading you out over 4 visits.
Woohoo, yay.
Yep.
Is it going to make me thin? You spread me out? Oh, joke, okay. Bop, bop, bop. No, okay.
You mentioned your husband.
Yes.
Well, let's show a family picture first.
Okay.
Here's the
how did
beautiful
the puppy
family
get in there?
today. Oh, yeah, you've got a puppy,
My
too.
husband doesn't think he's part of the family.
What's the puppy's name?
That's Brownie. That's my daughter, Joy, the baby's puppy, yes.
2 beautiful daughters.
Patience and Joy.
Now, I just love that.
Yes.
Patience and Joy. Did that have prophetic power?
Well, Patience is a huge African name.
Yeah.
And then Joy, I thought she actually was a boy when I was carrying her. I was going to call her Joshua Michael. And she was so feisty in my womb. She's this mighty conqueror. And because we didn't want to know. And then, you know, we go to have our baby, and it's a girl. And so we said, you know, this is Joy Danielle, and she's a delight. You'll hear about her a little bit later.
Well, I know you say your daughters made parenting easy.
Yeah.
And I thought, maybe there's something to choosing the right name.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Patience and
that's
Joy.
true. And I always say that too, not that we haven't had, you know, some of the challenges that parents have, but it's just I've tried to love them in the moment and live in the moment, and I don't, there's no perfect family, and so I don't come in with that idea that, you know, because we're, you know, they're PKs or preachers' kids, it's got to be, you know, we're just human, and so, I mean, that's kind of how we live.
Well, let's talk about the preacher.
Yeah.
This is a very cool love story.
Yes, yes. My husband, Michael, we were going on 22 years this year, November 18th.
You and I are married the same year.
Oh, wow, okay.
1989.
Okay, cool. So we're getting in the same couple things in common. And, but Michael, this is a great story. I was dating someone else. Thought I was going to marry this guy, but just had that little check in my spirit. And he wasn't a bad, awful guy, but you just knew that it wasn't what God really wanted for you. Well, I'd gone to Kansas City because I lived in Lynchburg, and a roommate in Lynchburg, Virginia said to me, you know, I live in Kansas City, Missouri. My parents are in the ministry. I'm going to tell them that you're a gospel singer. So they found out I was a gospel singer. They said, well, will you come to Kansas City for a couple months in the summer and sing? I said, sure. So they put me on a little local television station there in Kansas City. So I'm just singing away, Channel 50. And my husband, who I didn't know at the time, he was scanning through the channels, and he saw this woman singing with no ring on. And he goes, I'm going to marry that girl. I'm going to marry her. And he called his brothers in the room. He said, come, I'm going to marry this woman. And sure enough.
He called you.
Well, you don't know. I went by a church that he attended. One Sunday morning, I went by a church, and he was there. And I knew the pastor and another guy, and he introduced us. But you know what? It didn't click just like that. I met him, and I was like, oh, nice guy. But I was still dating this other guy. A year later, God turned this whole thing around. Cecil and I shouldn't have said his name, but it's all good. I just can't believe I said his name. But he's a wonderful guy.
That's the old boyfriend.
Yeah, the old boyfriend. And I could mention his name for like almost 20 years in the house, you know. But anyway, so the Lord shut that door, and Mike and I became this item, and God has blessed it, and I'm so very grateful. And hopefully we'll get to hear from him a little later. I don't know what we're going to do in the next segments, but
the neat thing is that he was trained to be an architect.
Yes.
But God called him to be a youth pastor.
Youth pastor.
Building lives.
Yes, exactly right. That's exactly right. And now we're pastoring in Kansas City now. He's a senior pastor, Mosaic Bible Fellowship, Tuesday night Bible studies, and so that's another whole phase of ministry. So it's so many things that.
And you love his preaching.
Yes, I'm on the edge of my seat when he preaches. He's such an incredible communicator, and he's funny. So it's kind of like you get this awesome truth, and you're laughing. You go, hey, that's true, you know, and then, you know, yeah, so it's pretty amazing.
And we'll discover, I think we'll leave it just now, but we will discover in our upcoming visits that you still have so much to do with youth.
Yes.
When did Gloria Gaither find you?
Wow, 1989.
In Arizona?
In Arizona. I was at a women's conference, and it was pretty amazing because, you know, my husband says I'm pretty gullible because I do believe people. When you say something, I pretty much believe you unless I have reason not to. But she said on stage in front of about 2,000 women, she goes, "Don't you just love her?" She says, "I love her and I want to take her home." And I thought, that's nice. She probably says that to everybody. And she really did want to take me home.
And began campaigning
for
with
like
Bill.
three years. You know, I met Bill the same year, and I just shook his hand real quick as she introduced us, and I got out of his face. I'm not one of those get in your face kind of make it happen for me people, because I knew if God had ordained my steps all of this time, that he was going to do nothing different for this time. So.
And the irony is.
Yes.
There was an interest in your family.
Yes.
On Bill's part.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't
Okay.
it?
Okay. Michael Tate of DC Talk, who's now the lead singer of Newsboys, is my little brother. And he's my big claim to fame. But Bill Gaither was looking for another tenor at the time for the Gaither vocal band. And he auditioned Mike. And Mike was just shy of a couple of notes. And it didn't work out. And oh, my word, are we glad in a good way that it didn't work out, because I don't know where DC Talk would have been, or even Newsboys. So, but he was after my brother. But I was privately praying. I was saying to the Lord, "Lord, would you please let Bill Gaither know there's still a daughter in Jesse's house that he knows nothing about." You remember the whole, yes.
Now, some will need a reminder. This is
Yes.
the story of Samuel the prophet.
That's right.
Looking for the next king of Israel.
That's right.
And going to the house of Jesse, and
Yes.
poor David was left out in the field with
Yeah.
the sheep. He wasn't being
So he thought he
considered.
anointed everybody. He goes, is there anybody left? Oh, yeah, there's still a son. And so I'm like, there's still a daughter.
Pick me,
Yeah,
pick me.
pick me. But my dad taught us, as the Bible says, you don't put yourself in the presence of great men. You let the Lord, take you to the high place, and you don't exalt yourself. Let another man's lips praise you and not your own. So that's kind of how I've lived. And but I just felt that God really wanted me with Gaithers. I felt that in my deepest soul, and he did. And the Lord just brought this thing full circle. Bill said to me at a Dove Awards a few years later, "Hey, if you ever do anything, you want to do a project, come to Indiana. I'll give you a deal you can't refuse." Well, I didn't have any funds to go, and I have to say this name, Jeannie Tucker, who is the biggest blessing, one of the biggest blessings of my life, gave me $2,400 to go and do 4 songs at the Gaither Studios all those many years ago. And I owe her and Brent so much, and I've paid her back 1,000 times since. But she's the one that got that ball rolling. And while I was there, Gloria says, I got home and she says, "I want to finish this." So she paid for the rest of the album, and then the rest is history. Bill invited me to a videotaping, and then
Gloria never stopped campaigning.
No,
for you.
and she's still campaigning. I love her. I love sitting at her feet. I've learned so very much.
Oh boy. Well, we've heard some of the wisdom from your dad.
Yes.
Through you. And in an upcoming interview, we're going to be talking
Yes.
about how a former gangster, gun packing
Yes.
gangster, your
Yeah,
father,
my father.
became
Yes.
a pastor
I
of
just
such
get chills when you say
wisdom.
it. Yeah.
And such an
Unreal.
influence in your life. So much
Yeah.
to talk about. But you are, I want to mention, you just beginning of a Canadian tour.
Yeah, I love Canada.
I want Canada to see where you're going to be.
Yes.
Let's bring up that tour page first and foremost. June 7th,
Yes.
London, Ontario. June 8th, Kingston.
Yes.
The 10th, you're heading east, and that's where you're going to be for, I guess, the rest of the month.
Yeah.
Fredericton, you can see June 11th and 12th, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. The 14th and 15th, Cornwallis, Nova Scotia. And then St. John's, Newfoundland on the
Yes.
17th and 18th. We need to go to your website to get times.
That's right, and get
places.
more information. Exactly.
And that website is?
LyndaRandle.com. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
You are doing a wonderful thing with us, and that is, and for us, we are so excited to be making available your ministry in music on a CD.
Thank you.
I'm Free.
Yes.
Is the title. It isn't free, though.
Yeah.
It is our thanks for your gift to this ministry. And Lynda, we want to thank you for this. It is a limited time offer. This is the number to call, 1-800-265-3100, or log on to crossroads.ca. You know, we've just been doing this recently, having these special limited time offers, and it's so fun.
Yes.
And people respond so well.
Oh, good.